Well, I'm talking to Irishman Colin Buchanan here completely isolated in the upper regions of the Mudgee Town Hall.
Yes.
You might wonder, why are we here? Well, we're here for Faith Runs Deep with Karl Faase.
Yes.
And we thought as a backdrop we'd have a bit of something Irish.
Well, it's nice.
Yeah. Belfast, is it connected to the Buchanans?
And now we've been showing tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Colin, Karl's vision, I suppose, with Faith Runs Deep is storytelling.
Yeah.
And, mate, you've spent years and years singing stories and watching what Karl's doing and what you're doing. Can you see a connection?
It is interesting because I thought of you sitting in that audience tonight too, and Karl was describing something that we've knocked around a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Just the power of stories and the potency of finding people's lives in their place and in their time, and just discovering that. Turning it over in your hands and in your mind, and you would do that by crafting a yarn that you might tell to people, and I would do it in song, and it's interesting that Karl's got a vision for that, and that he's doing it with videos.
Well, we're on the way from Mudgee to Colgong. Some stories out there about Henry Lawson. But look at that lovely countryside. Clouds hanging over, nice and green. I'm here with my friend Henry Lawson on the edge of Gulgong, and a lot of his story in this town. And so we're on our little trip, and today we're going to unearth some of his story. A week or two back I was reading Michael Frost's book about Eyes Wide Open, and I think that's a great idea. For me, I've trained myself to keep my eyes wide open for stories, and you can do that too. Every little town you go through has got a story, and we're going to hear this one today. I'm here in the Henry Lawson Museum in Gulgong, and would you believe it's in the Salvation Army Hall? And that's why I'm standing up here in the pulpit, and I'm sure there were some fiery sermons preached from here. But Henry had quite a connection to the Salvation Army, and both in Bourke, and then more in Sydney, around North Sydney, once he got into alcoholism, they kind of rescued him. So if you come to Gulgong, there's a great story here to learn about a bloke who really expressed our Australian story in our own terms, and that's something I like. We've got a job to do, even now in our time, to tell our story in our language, the stories of faith. So we're going to follow me up the street and I'll tell you a bit more of that. I was amazed to discover when I went down to the Henry Lawson Museum, it's actually in an old Salvation Army building, and I know from Henry Lawson's story the Salvos played quite a big part in his life. We were at a concert a couple of nights ago in Mudgee, and Colin Buchanan sang a song about a friend of ours, Currajong Bill, and about his struggle with alcohol, and it was a struggle that wouldn't die, I think was the line he used. And it struck me, well, yep, that's pretty much Henry Lawson's story. From pretty much when he was young, he struggled with alcohol, and eventually it beat him. But along the way, there were people that he met, and particularly Christians he met, who tried to help him through it, and the Salvos were one of the groups that met him. And he met them in Bourke, and he wrote a little poem about the publicans sitting listening to the Salvos, and he finished with a line, "But I love my fellow sinners, and I hope that on the whole the army gets a hearing when it prays for what he sold." And it reminded me, there was a poem he wrote about Booth's drum, and it's a story of a Salvation Army girl who he had met, who called on him to help her run the corps during the First World War when all the men had gone, and so she was running the corps on her own. And she called on Henry, of all people, who was still struggling with grog, to come and help her run the meeting. And so the poem sort of tells the story of this girl and Henry meeting and a conversation they had along the way, and I'd like to read it to you now. He picks the story up and he says, "No more we see across the park, the SA barracks all aglow, a single gas jet lights the dark. A single lassie runs the show." And other shows. She travels round to help them here and there a bit. She knows the bush and she knows the ground. She's very small, but she has grit. She said to me the other day, "I wish you'd come in tonight. I think 'twould help me anyway. Give me better strength to fight." I scarce knew what she meant, for she had humour in her winsome face, unless 'twould help her heart to see a bully bard like him in the halls of grace. So tired of doing right. And then I thought I'd let her know that I was saved one strenuous night in old North Sydney years ago, and never had no luck until I got run in and fined 5 bob, and also that I never will until I find a steady job. "But that old save's wore out," she said, "and those old days are past and gone. Come in tonight and clear your head and get a brand new save put on. You know that I'm a stranger here, and I find it very dull and slow." She paused and brushed away a tear. "You'll help me more than you can know." And so I went, a sinner grey, and sat among the earnest few, and prayed when she said, "Let us pray," or rather I pretended to. And when the others rose to go, well, they sent 'em stay out late, she sat for half an hour or so beside this unregenerate. She showed me, sitting by my side, a letter in a chaplain's hand that told her how her sweetheart died out there in no man's land. I'd known them both in years gone by. What time the chaplain used to swear, I read the lines and saw that my unworthy name was mentioned there. Then, blind with tears, she bent her head, but just as soon as the tears were stayed, "Now, brother, let us pray," she said. And then her brother knelt and prayed. And far or near, it seemed to me, or yesterday or long ago, in this town or across the sea, Booth's drum was sobbing, soft and low. I think with Henry, what I know of him, there's a wistfulness in him that longed for being home, being safe, belonging, and he was always on the quest for looking for that. And I think that the search for Jesus and for faith was part of it. And the Salvos came alongside, and obviously they had some effect on him. So that's the story of Henry and the Salvation Army here in Gulgong, and I hope you enjoyed it. Well, you're looking at the beginnings of the Gulgong goldfields. 1870 it was first reported up here on Red Hill, and we've looked around Gulgong, and this is the area where Henry Lawson, among others, began his life, and we followed a bit of his story. So we're on the road again, and we're going to head off to Newcastle, and we're telling another story. We want you to start telling another story. Everywhere we go, there are stories just like the gold we can mine out and put to work, and they're valuable, probably more precious than gold in a way, these stories of faith. So you start telling another.